Alright guys, another couple days of failing made of 15 one-taps. I love RNG, but I couldn't get it as of right now, so we're making this video instead. We're working on a video, or I'm making a video, talking about the certain backline weapons you can get as of right now, and which one you want to use and all that jazz, right? So if you guys aren't already aware of which ones to use, I'm pretty sure there's like a little post going on around telling you which ones to use. But generally, if you guys have decent reading comprehension skills, then you'll know which one to use. And it's not that big of a deal. It really isn't a big deal. So I'll go ahead to explain to you guys. So as of right now, for most ships, certain ships have SSRs, but most ships can use blue or purple quality, right? So I'm gonna tell you as of right now, if you guys have both available, don't bother with the blue ones because the purple ones give way more stats. So just ignore the blue ones if you have purple available, right? So like this one right here, if I upgrade this, it has like slightly less stats compared to just a regular bow gun. I'll go ahead and craft the basic one for you guys. Well, I don't have to, but it's like it's far more stats compared to a blue one, right? A blue one's like 5 plus 3. This one is like 14. Yeah, it's not even close. So you want to use a purple one right off the bat. Now, as of right now, they'll tell you there's two available. You either have the bow gun or the crossbow or the sword. I'm gonna assume that's a sword. Yeah, okay, it's a sword. So depending on what ships you use, there's certain advantages to using either, right? So the first one is bow gun. Bow gun is the weapon in this ship's first gear slot, deals 5% more damage to heavy armor enemies, but 5% less damage to light armor enemies. So if you're in a scenario where you're using like AP guns, you would kind of want to use this because there's no really good AP guns for dealing with heavy armor as of right now for battleships. So this is really good. And obviously it's not as effective for light armor, so you wouldn't want to use it there. So if you're doing like a light armor fight, let's say like Hell in the Maiden or something, you wouldn't want to use the bow gun. Now, yes, it does give firepower, but the 5% less mods on light armor enemy kind of sucks. So you want to avoid that. So you want to use the Officer's Sword. Officer's Sword gives hit and evasion, whereas the bow gun gives firepower and anti-air. So you want to avoid using this for light armor. You want to use the sword. And for a sword, you want to use this if you want to take advantage of that first volley. Increases main fleet's firepower by 20%. This is really good for your buffers like Duke of York, Vanguard, ships like those. This is really good here. Now, for most general scenarios, you would want to stick with the bow gun because it gives firepower, but it gives less mods. But here's the thing as well, too. If you're doing general content, guys, the light armor enemies are really paper. They sink really, really fast. So if you're already one-shotting mobs and targets, then it's not a big deal. Just go ahead and use the bow gun. Otherwise, if you guys aren't one-shotting it, you may want to consider using the Officer's Sword. This is also actually not bad as well too. It just doesn't give the 25 firepower the bow gun has, but it also buffs your firepower for 20 firepower at the start. So using this, actually, I take it back. Using this for like general content for like fast farming and whatnot, it's actually not that bad. You want to use the bow gun for like difficult, medium, and heavy armor stuff because of the mods and the firepower. But for most ships that you want to use a buffer, you would want to use the sword on like Duke of York and Vanguard. Otherwise, if you want to do something like fast farming, the sword is good here. So, for example, if I were to go to like Operation Siren right now, I would do something like Officer's Sword on Vanguard. I'm using a bow gun right now, but I have reasons for why I'm doing that. I would use Officer's Sword on Vanguard, and if I use like New Jersey and Ulrich, even though that's like a boss fleet, but let's say I'm doing OS, right? I would use the bow gun there, and I would use the bow gun here. But you can also do sword as well too. It doesn't really matter too much. I think it's like very marginal differences. The 5% sucks, but again, New Jersey and Ulrich are very, very strong, so it's not that big of a deal. You can just ignore that part. I just like the firepower because firepower is a really good stat on battleships, so we just run with that. Alright, so I'm gonna say most of the time you're gonna be running the sword because the sword is like the first shot gives 20 20% more firepower to backlines. I mean, if you're running a full backline of battleships, is really good. And then bowgun is good for situational boss fights like medium and heavy armor, like on arbiter fights. Sometimes some meta fights too. They're really good there. Now, as for carriers are right now there's two options. You either have the hunting bow or the scepter. The difference is that the scepter, every battleship or every battle, when this ship launches her first airstrike, increases your main fleet's aviation by 20 for 10 seconds. This skill does not stack. You only use it once, right? It's basically the same as the officer's sword for battleships. It increased your aviation by 20 for 10 seconds after the first airstrike. So you give this to your fastest carrier. This is really good. Really, really good. And then the hunting bow, once per battle, when the ship's aircrafts have shot down 5 enemy aircrafts, increases the ship's aviation by 20. So, using this you'll probably want to use this for like everything, for related to like. Okay, so it's like this. The best way I can explain it is scepter is pretty much best in slot for just fast farming, same as like the officer's sword, and then hunting bow is like really good in some situational areas. Like the hunting bow, I can tell you right now is going to be good in World 12, World 13. The siren carrier that spawns in strongholds, really good there too. And the jellyfish, I think, also has planes well too, that you see in abyss strongholds. So that's really good there too. So for most part, thank God they're both the same stat, because I hate how battleships, one gives hit and one gives firepower. At least this time around, both of them give aviation. So at least this is there. It comes down to whatever you want for the effects. Now, if you're doing like World 12 stuff, then what you would want to do is something like one scepter and then full on hunting bows to get the potential more aviation for that ship. Because if she sinks 5 enemy aircrafts, that's a 20 aviation buff for the whole fight. And then if she sinks it early, which is not going to happen, it stacks up with a scepter. That's 20, or that's 40 aviation. That's not going to happen, but 40 aviation. But you get 20, like if you sink 5 aircrafts, that's 20 for the whole fight. That's really good. So that's pretty much the stuff you'll be running like every single time. Now, I can't think of a scenario where you would run like multiple scepters, because that's not a thing. Or you want to run like multiple hunting bows, because the scepter is really good in its own way. You would want to run, if you're doing 3 carriers, you do 2 hunting bows and 1 scepter. Otherwise, if you're doing like, I don't know, World 12, World 13, I guess you can do 3 hunting bows, but I would really want to use a scepter because it boosts aviation. And fights generally don't last that long to the point where you need that many. I say scepter is still really good. I guess can't think of a scenario where you run more scepters. You can't, and like, or all hunting bows. You would want to run 1 scepter, 2 hunting bows, or 1 scepter and 1 hunting bow for your backline carriers. So either using 2 carriers or 3 carriers. If you're using 1 carrier, you would want to run. You can run either or. I believe if you're running like 1 carrier for like regular content, you can run either or. I'd say use scepter because you get the buff right away at the start. If you're doing like a boss content, maybe the hunting bow would be a better option. And as for battleships, if you're doing like 1 battleship content, I'd say definitely use the officer's sword to get the whatchamacallit right away. If you go against heavy armor and medium armor, definitely use the bowgun. If you're using 1 battleship, if you're using 2, use 1 officer's sword, 1 bowgun. If you're using 3, use 2 bowguns, 1 officer's sword. Unless it's like light armor or something, then just run all officer swords or something. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal, honestly, unless we get like a light armor boss fight that's really difficult, like Temperance or something, right? If that's the case, you'll probably run like 3 officer sword and just call it there. Even though it doesn't really help you that much after the first 10 seconds. It doesn't really matter though. So that is my advice to you guys. It's pretty easy to understand. Most of the time I just look at this as the free stats because oh my god, 25 firepower. But they also offer additional stuff as well too. Just think of it as just a different play styles, what you want to run. Think about team comps when we put stuff together. Like for example, if I run like a Meta 15 right now, I would use one officer sword. Well, not right now, but if I used Ulrich, Vanguard, and New Jersey, I would run one officer sword and two hunting bows. If I was doing like World 14 as of right now, I would do something like I don't know. If I'm doing like some battleship in like Aquila and Perseus, I would do one scepter, one hunting bow, and officer sword, stuff like that. It's pretty simple. If you're going for just regular campaign stuff, you will want the stat buffs right away. So using those ones where it's like first shot gives you 20 more stats. Those are the ones you want to use. And if you want like more consistent damage output, you run the ladder. All right. So if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. The concept of the weapons and gear and whatnot is really easy. It's just free stats. And if you guys aren't min-maxed properly for those, it's not a big deal. You're missing out on like minor stats. Not that big. It's like a fraction of what cats can offer you at max perfect stats. So don't think of it as like, oh my god, I'm missing like 20 firepowers, end of the world. No, it's not. Unless you're doing like specific content that requires you to use a lot of damage or something. But for most of you guys, it's not a big deal. It's just free stats. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.